Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I'm going to detail the story of Sacramento rapper BOE Sixo. BOE Sixo was born Deshaun Walker, and he would grow up in Sacramento in a notorious section of Sacramento called Oak Park. Oak Park is one of the most known areas in Sacramento. Oak Park started off as a white thriving community in the early 1900s, but a lot would change by the 1960s, and the white community would leave in abundance, causing white flight. In the 1960s, the Interstate Freeway Expansion Program physically divided many historical neighborhoods like Oak Park, creating isolated areas of poverty. Oak Park's sense of community started to decline in the early 1960s as a result of the freeway expansion. With declining property values, families decided to move to new suburb communities, now made easily accessible to them by the new freeway. During the 1980s, further deterioration in the living standards of Oak Park became the norm, and so would crime, like petty theft, drug activities, and gang-related violence, and that would come from a gang formed in the 1980s called the Oak Park Bloods. The Oak Park Bloods would become one of the most known gangs in Sacramento, with several cliques within their hood, and go on to war with several gangs from various other areas of Sacramento. Oak Park's younger generation of gang members would be a huge factor of Sacramento's rap scene, which would take off in the early 2010s. People like Mozzie being the most known from Oak Park, but it would be several other Oak Park rappers and crews forming in the area. One of the youngest crews and rappers would be a group from Oak Park by the name of BOE, with several members would begin rapping under the BOE moniker, like BOE Sosa, BOE Mumu, and BOE Sixo would be among several others. BOE would start taking off in 2017, with BOE Sosa doing numbers on several songs that he would drop. Most of BOE were young high school students, around 14, 15, and 16 years old. Outside of rapping, they were involved in the streets, and the streets would cost a loved BOE member named Mir his life. I did a previous episode about Mir, and he was shot and killed in an attempted robbery, and BOE Sixo was also involved in that robbery, and he was also shot. But BOE Sixo, he would survive the shooting.
Just before 8 o'clock, the officers got here. They said they found two 15-year-old boys gunned down in the middle of the street. One of those boys was unresponsive. The fire department got there to assist the police department in life-saving measures, but sadly that 15-year-old boy was pronounced dead at the hospital. The second is being treated for what is described to us by Sacramento police as life-threatening injuries. Meanwhile, they said they have very little on suspect information. They're still trying to learn more about the boys and whether or not they actually live in this neighborhood or if they were visiting this neighborhood and why they would have been in this neighborhood. They said all indications at this point were pointing that they were not from the neighborhood, as they continue to interview neighbors and anyone who may have seen anything in what they're calling a tragic incident with two boys gunned down.
Sixo would still continue with his street life, but he would later be exposed for snitching, and his paperwork would come out. I covered it in my Sac Rap Snitches episode, but here's his paperwork again, so y'all decide if he snitched or not. But whether if he snitched or not, Sixo paperwork didn't mean nothing to his BOE crew, because he stayed around, and they treated him like nothing ever happened. But other rappers from Oak Park, like Shooter Gang VJ, who BOE would later have an inner circle beef with, would even expose BOE Sixo for being a snitch. But none of that would affect Sixo, not even a snitch title on his name. He still roamed the streets, and his crew still treated him with respect, and he even got even more disrespectful in the streets, as BOE was one of the most disrespectful rap crews in Sacramento, known for trolling and making diss songs. And BOE Sixo, he would make his own diss songs to rivals, and him and BOE Mumu, along with other BOE members, would become known for pulling up in enemy areas, making videos, trolling, and his social media accounts would be no different. Sixo would take being disrespectful and dissing enemies like a job. But on November 3rd, 2024, Sixo would meet his fate. BOE Sixo was sitting in a car where he would be shot and killed.
A man was shot and killed in a car in Upperland Park neighborhood of Sacramento this afternoon. Police said that this happened just before 1:30 in the area of Kit Carson Street and Revere Street. The man was pronounced dead at the scene.
The victim was located by officers in that vehicle, and they removed him from that vehicle to provide life-saving measures. Due to the circumstances, our homicide detectives and our crime scene investigators responded to the scene. They'll be processing the scene, canvassing the area, interviewing any witnesses.
And anyone with any information on this is asked to call the Sacramento Police Department.
With his death, he would be mocked by several rappers and enemies of his gang, some calling him a dead snitch or just making fun of his death. But with the streets, the way you live by the gun, and you die by it. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.